Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my review of the STI, the Tier 9 Russian heavy tank. In World of Tanks, if this isn't for you, if you don't like licking stats, if you don't like licking at stats, then feel free to lick on a little bit and you'll see some gameplay footage. Am I going to take that out? No, let's just roll with it. Yeah, very first Tier 9, it comes after the KV Fortress. Oh, it's a beautiful tank. Back in the day, this was a brilliant tank. Let's put your better turret on. Insufficient load capacity. Alright. That thing. Oh. Loved it. Loved it. And then they buffed it. Later on, they buffed it because this right here used to be a mega weak point. Plus your cheeks as well. So you'd have to fire a shot and then angle your turret just a little bit, just like that, and you get away with it. Oh, it was nice. And then they buffed it, so this is no longer a weak point because people don't know how to play the game anymore. It's sad. It's sad and a little bit pathetic, but it bodes well for those of us that learn weak points. But we're running out of weak points to aim at. Anyway, back to the STI. STI and not ST1. Why STI and not ST1? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a 1 and this is a 2 and this is a 3, which means this is an I. It kind of falls over a little bit because I'd now have to call this the Tiger II, but I mean, nautical hilarity aside, I'm fine with calling this the STI, or sexually transmitted infection. It rolls off the tongue. So, what is so good about the STI? It's got a good gun. It's got a good gun. It's got good gun depression. Let's compare it. Let's compare it to the other Tier 9s. I put them all in this list, and I nearly forgot about it. I put all the Tier 9s in this list. Tier 9 heavy tanks, the tanks that you will be derping up against. You'll also see Tier 10, but at Tier 10 you have to relegate yourself to almost kind of a heavy medium role. Don't be leading the line in the sexually transmitted infection. Yeah, the average damage per shot, it's pretty good. If you look along the line, that is pretty good, except when it comes to the big fat Japanese heavies, because the Japanese heavy line was made for people who don't know how to play. Just get in a Japanese heavy, point your front towards the enemy and roll forwards, and then wait for everybody to load gold, spam their gold on you so that Wargaming can sell more gold ammunition to people in these tanks. But the depression, the gun depression, a -8. It's only really beaten by the Conqueror there, and it's even with the M103, the American M103. So it's good. It works. Everything here kind of works. The turret armor right here. Turret armor of 250 on the front. Now that's beaten by the Object 257, which has an extra 100mm of frontal turret armor, but don't let that fool you. The Object 257 suffers from what I like to call IS-3itis, which is this panel right here. This panel right here is made of cheese, actual Russian cheese. I don't know my Russian cheeses, but someone could probably tell me what Russian cheese is, and this would be it. It's about, I don't know, 40mm thick. So if you get up and close and personal with an Object 257, or if he's hull down, then you dink shots just above his gun. Chances are you're going to overpen, and he's going to have a really bad day. He's got massive amount of armor on his cheeks. Where this is kind of flat just here, I would think might be a weak point, but they're not. I looked at the armor inspector, they're not. It's just here. In fact, let's go have a look at the Armour Inspector. Let's go back to the STI. Quite a big turret in comparison, but let's have a look at the Armour Inspector for it. Here we go. So we have with the angle on the top of the turret there, it's what, 100mm thick? Effective armor there is 100mm thick, but at this angle, especially if you are hull down, especially if you're using that amazing gun depression, it's more like this, pretty much. So you're never hitting that. 659.8mm of effective armor. That's an automatic ricochet. Even the commander's hatch, which is kind of a, yeah, it's a big target to hit, especially if you're up close. But if you're using that good gun depression, you've angled this angle even further away from you. And there are times that people bounce off this, or they'll just miss it entirely, especially if you're doing the wiggliness. Also, if you turn your gun slightly and then aim up, you can obscure your commander's hatch, and they'll fire into your gun, and they may damage your gun, but you can repair a gun. You can't repair hit points, can you? Which is a viable strat. The mantlet and the turret itself, it is very strong. It is very strong. However, the ones that want to win the game really desperately at tier 10, that decide to press the 2 button twice, they'll slice through you. But there are times where you'll bounce tier 10 heat, and it makes you laugh. But we'll compare that to the object. Where are you? Tier 9 heavies, object 257, and there we go. The IS-3 ITIS is there for everybody to see. You are slicing through that. If he's kind of hull down, the thing is, the object, it doesn't have brilliant gun depression. Gun depression of the object 257 minus 5 degrees. That's Chinese levels of gun depression. It's horrific. It's horrific. So you can't really use gun depression to get out of this glaring weak point. Weak point. I've done that a few times now. I've merged a point and spot together, and I've come up with spoint. But I'm gonna. That's my thing. It's my jam now. It's spoint is going to be a thing. You all now know what it means. So if you're aiming at this point right here, it's almost an automatic pen. 78mm of effective armor. And it's the same with the IS-3. Let's go back. Let's go to, it's TS7, isn't it? IS-3? Nope, too right. Don't even know my tanks. Here we go. And it makes it the first appearance in the IS-3, really, where you're taught, if you can find the hull, if he's angled the hull towards you, you aim at the side that he's normalized, that he's flattened out for you, or if he's front way on, straight into the lower plate, or if you can get slightly above him, or if you nose to nose with him, aim into the top of the turret, and you're cutting through, like that cheese that I mentioned earlier on. So, object 257, 350mm on frontal armor, but don't let that fool you. The STI in comparison is much better in terms of how it uses its armor, where it's spaced, how it's spread out, and how useful it is at protecting your hit points. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into some gameplay, shall we? So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Westfield. Let's go. Laughing at the E75 that spawned in the bottom of the valley there, because nobody in a heavy tank wants to be spawning in the bottom of the valley. The heavies operate here and here. Tank destroyers usually at the back here, and this is a place for light tanks and mediums. Bear in mind where I just said, if you're in a tank destroyer, where you should go. Because we're about to see something very stupid here. From a Scorpion, no less. Premium tank destroyer. Premium German tank destroyer with 14 millimeters. 14 millimeters of turret armor. It's not even armor. It's there to stop the wind. I think it only has to be 14 millimeters in order to give it some kind of structural integrity. Otherwise, it'd be like Rolf Harris coming down the road. You know, you remember the noise, the Rolf Harris wibbly metal thing? Otherwise, it would sound like that. It would be ridiculous. It sounds something like this. Alright, enough of that. No, enough. Alright, so, Scorpion G. Scorpion G, brilliant gun. Worthy of this match. Tier 8, fair enough, he's up against some tier 10s, but he could still do a lot of damage, but he has to keep himself safe. Even his hull isn't that strong. It's something like 30 millimeters. Everything is going through that. A tier 1, however, is going through his turret. The Renault FT, with 27 millimeters of penetration, is going through his turret. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you get giddy. And he used his brilliant mobility, as the Scorpion has. It's got a really good traverse speed. It's got really good... it's good at getting around the map. It's good at relocating, and that's its strength. And it didn't use that. It poked over the hill. He saw all of us here and decided, I need to get the gun depression to get a shot on target. Maybe someone in the back here. Maybe this STRV. Maybe even the Ferdinand. And he might not have been far away from getting a shot on target. But you can't open yourself up this early in the game and do 0 damage like that. Not in a tank destroyer. This did not bode well for them. But it's a tank that you purchase, so what can we do? What can you do? Lots of big tanks over there. I see the gap. I see the dip just here, and I'm thinking, if I can get in there, I can use my gun depression. But I have to run the gauntlet. Bounce 750. Don't bounce the low. Bounce the mountain. Mountain is firing APCR, but well, he probably doesn't have any skill. So this is the kind of position that you want to be in. I say, whilst we continue to get APCR'd by the mountain in the side of the turret. Thankfully they didn't have any SPGs, otherwise we'd have been in a little bit of bother. The IS-3 is just, he's being silly. He ends up in the same place time and time again. But in this point, the only way they're digging us out is by accurate shots into our commander's hatch or SPGs, and they don't have any. And we have access to the sides of these guys, and we're keeping these 4 tanks ahead of us. Type 4 heavy with the HE, stupid fat Japanese tanks. We're keeping these 4 tanks down here, all occupied, which is allowing our teammates to gradually chew through the ones that come through this little gap here. The mediums and the lights have taken the left flank very easily, and IS-3 has found himself well out of place. Our E-75 is just getting into the fight now, but at least he's in a good position. The IS-3 on the other side might have spawned down in the valley and decided to stay down there. Thankfully our E-75 wasn't as dumb. And this is what you can do in the in the STI. Getting my ISs mixed up. You can see the kind of the scrapes that we get into and the bounces. As long as we only show our turret, the front of our turret, then they're going to really struggle to get through it. That object 705 decided to switch to heat. Object 257, nope, hit us, didn't go through. And by this point we've chewed through the majority of the enemy heavies. And the team's probably going to win this. We don't need to move. If we come out of our little hole here, someone's going to get a shot. Tier 9, Tier 10 is going to get a shot onto our hull, and that's going to be end game for us. We don't need to move out this location, so I don't think we do. I think we just stay in this all game and continue to farm a little bit of damage against people facing the other way, because why wouldn't you? And this is the strength of the STI. So, ladies and gentlemen, the post-game stats from that game that we just had. Bear in mind, there were quite a few tier 10s there. We got Steel Wall, of course. If you're going to bounce, how much damage? 4,870 damage. The chances are you're going to get a Steel Wall. Team score came top on damage dealt. Even though we were only a tier 9, we got ourselves in a brilliant position. It just shows how good the gun is on the STI. As long as you know where the weak points are on the tank, but then you don't need to know weak points if people are going to show the back of turrets or the side of the tanks to you, or if you get in a good position. But we did all right there. We did all right. Fire for effect, shell proof, bruiser. What's this? Total damage block by armor exceed the hit points of your vehicle. It's always good. Fire for effect cause more damage to enemy vehicles than the hit points of your vehicle. This is, if you can do this every game, then you're an asset to your team. Dualistic, just destroy at least 2 enemy vehicles that cause damage to your vehicle in the battle. Good. Bruiser, damage enemy vehicles' modules or in your crew members at least 5 times during the battle. And Hand of God, survive and win the battle having received damage from at least 4 different enemy vehicles. I think we got damage from 1, 2, 3, 4. We took damage from quite a few people, especially getting into position. Initially getting into position, I think we shed about 700 HP, but it was more than worth it just for that advanced position down the side. We were isolated in that little trench area, which meant that everybody on the enemy team, most of the people on the enemy team, were facing the biggest threat, and we were not the biggest threat there. We might have done the most damage, but in real game terms, we were not the biggest threat. They were looking down the way at the likes of the Mouse and maybe the Ferdinand, sort of. The WZ-111, probably. These kind of guys. Although, I mean, we did take a bit of a beating, but we got to the end, and we've made a profit, which is odd because I stopped playing this game about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, because I got to tier 9 and realized that it was economically impossible to make a profit. I'm not the kind of person that jumps into tier 9 and loads my tank out full of gold rounds. It's not me. I don't like it. I think I have about 5 gold rounds in any one of my tanks because I don't really agree with it. So I'm not one for spamming gold. And even so, a few years ago, a game like this, I'd have only just been making a profit. Take out 10,000 for the personal missions. It's still 15,000 profit. It's all right. It's okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the STI. Now, I can't compare this Tier 9 Russian heavy tank to anything that I currently have. Not really. I mean, the closest thing that I've got to it is maybe the IS-3, perhaps the Tiger II. I don't have anything that I can directly compare it to. So my review here might be a little bit biased, but I think it's a cracking little tank. As long as you know what to do with it, as long as you know its limitations, as long as you can use its strengths and cover its weaknesses, then it's a cracking tank. With this tier 10 gun that it gets, you can surprise a lot of tanks in front of you. Fitted out with vents, gun rammer, and vertical stabilizers. Vertical stabilizers are always 100% always better than the enhanced gun lane drive. Always go for the vertical stabilizers. Then you've got a cracking little tank. It's a little bit slow, and you can get outmaneuvered, but as long as you can get hull down somewhere, you are going to cause people lots of problems in this STI. So that is me. That is my review. Until next time, do take care.